we had these phones, but sadly they got stolen, some of them, but we had these phones for teachers, and they were like a Samsung Galaxy Beam, I think Beam 1 and then Beam 2. I'm not sure which one of them was it, but it was like Beam, which was really cool. I think we should get if we created like our own phones, imagine like one in the near future or something, we would like fundraise or crowdfund like our own like Solana phone, but not for 1,000 euros, but sub 100 euros or something, like let's say Solana phone for Africa and for Eastern Europe or something like that. And imagine they could be like these Samsung Galaxy Beam phones, which actually had a projector.
Actually had a projector, I remember.
There are these like cat phones. It's like CAT, like it's like a Caterpillar, the company that is like producing these bulldozers, like the African. Sorry, no, the US company, but the American company producing these big machines like bulldozers, these construction, I don't know, machines. And they have also these cat phones. It's like they're like durable, if they're difficult to break, and some of them and some of them have like temperature, like you point it into, like, for example, if you are like in construction, you are like working, let's say, on a construction site. It helps you to find out like which spots are, let's say, where the heating, if you are like measuring something, like where there is some kind of heat escaping from the room. Let's say if you want to fix some kind of heating system or something, and you can point it to a wall, and it gives you the temperature of a wall, but imagine like you have this kind of smartphone, but also like with the projector and with these kind of features, maybe some kind of like features to measure your some kind of like, like now you have these fitness bands or something, but there were these kind of other projects. I think it was called ARA, if I'm correct, like was like a Google ARA or something. It was like for a Google phone, but the project was then didn't continue. It was like ended. So and it's difficult. This is difficult, but if you get like, at least the Beam was cool, the Beam, because imagine that like it was like a yellow phone, and it was like it was pretty special because nobody else had this kind of type of phone, and you could like watch football or something, like use it as a projector.
It's true. I remember there's a time when I passed through a street, and I turned it on, and the kids followed me, from the behind, like they're watching movie while we are walking, so it was it was a great fun. I mean, Hello, welcome back to Mtambo's Desk podcast. My name is Jakub Mtambo, and the following is a conversation with Jakub Simek, a co-founder of Zesha DAO and an author of Wisdom Enterprising. In today's episode, I'll be talking with Jakub Simek about his article, Mobile Telescope, under the daily Balajisms series. And now, dear friends, here is Jakub Simek. Jakub, thank you once again for joining me at Mtambo's Desk podcast.
Hi, Duke. I'm happy to be here with you.
Well, Jakub, let's get started. In your article, you wrote about Balaji's metaphor of a mobile telescope. What is your interpretation on that metaphor?
Yeah, it's like the telescope looking for the dark matter, like the Hubble's telescope, and now the name escapes me just like right now, but like some famous telescopes, and then one of them is like searching for dark matter. And so a mobile telescope, like a mobile phone telescope, is searching for a dark talent globally. So it's like the unrecognized talent in the world, So Hubble's telescope, I think that's the English one, is looking for dark matter, and the mobile telescope is looking for dark talent. So it's just like people who might be based in India or Russia or Kenya, and who might not have received the education from some prestige institutions, prestige universities, but they got the education from like Lambda School or the education of Google, the Google University, from YouTube, from Lambda School, or more recently from Replit. And there are some examples of these, like even 10 years ago you get like some like genius kid of Ulaanbaatar or some who scored the perfect score in some MIT Coursera course, or like recently I listened to Balaji and the Replit founder talking on a podcast of Indian guys like from Super Team.
Yes,
and they discuss and they discussed some like 6-year-old code influencer on I don't know if on TikTok or YouTube or something, but I'm not sure if it's a girl or a guy, but the kid is also on Replit. It's like 6-year-old.
So. Yeah, I think he said like he also did he's the youngest AI programmer, I think, or developer.
Yeah, he got like a Microsoft certificate for AI developer, and it's like 6 years.
Yeah. It's interesting.
That's crazy. That's crazy, but it's there are many examples like that, and in the article I discuss like, I mean, we have like some personal stories like from around Voi and from our previous work at Sotehub, and so you remember these like, but these like girls from Dovecare, like developing a hardware solution to protect elephants. And to notify the Kenyan Wildlife Service rangers. So they did some like prototype of like a device that would like scare off elephants, but also would notify the rangers if the elephants approach the village or the farm. So it would also protect farmers, like their crops, but also elephants, in an attempt to reduce the wildlife, the human wildlife conflict. And they traveled to the US, to Delaware, right? And they were from Kajira Girls High School, and the school didn't have electricity just back then in 2012. So when we started the project there, and then they got actually they had some computers, but they didn't have electricity when we started the project there. But then we also we got them more computers, projectors, this and that. We organized some competitions, started these like SOTA ICT clubs. We started these training companies, and I remember in 2014, you were there, like training them, like with me, just like traveling around these schools and
with the
like,
Lego milestone.
Also there was this like robotics workshop that we ran with M1BT at Gajire, like the two schools close to each other, like one is a boys school, one is a girls school, and they're super high, they are very competitive. They were very competitive. It was interesting. So we were running these workshops, and you were like helping to put just do these robotics things like Lego robots. And you were also running, going around those schools and like mentoring them in these training companies, like I remember like how to properly do some record keeping and this and that. It was really good. So, but it was like 2014. Okay, so 2012 they didn't have electricity. 2014 they already had like these training companies. And 2018, they went to the US, Delaware, to compete with their startup in Dovecare. So it's like 4 girls from rural Kenya, around Voi, Kajira high schools, and with their teacher, William. And competing in the US. So it is like one of the examples that we also supported, like you and me, and we helped them also along with David and with others, of course. And just we are not taking all the credit, but at least like we supported them with our 2 cents and our efforts here. Here and there, so it was great example just from Kenya, because they won the African competition, Diamond Challenge, and then they went to the US. So, and it's just like totally from rural Kenya, school with no electricity before, and then in 6 years they managed to get into the US. So with their startup idea. And they were covered by BBC and others, so it was good, but this is just like our personal example, but like there are many examples like that. I also from Kenya that I read or I watched, some it's often it's also something like related to wildlife conservation efforts, or like some energy, like clean energy kind of solutions. So there are examples like that. And okay, maybe just like a bit different example, but like in Rwanda, they are it's not just a pilot, but they're running like this drone delivery service for medicines. I think maybe we talked about it as well before, but it's like
I think the company is called Amref, if I'm not wrong.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But it's really like interesting. Like lots of like lots of like these examples exist, and people in Western media or Western world, like they are not that much aware of them. Usually they cover like as many places like this they cover when there is something bad happening, but like when these probably I remember like it was maybe 10 years ago, okay, but like still like it was like only 2% of Europeans in some kind of survey. It's like actually it's called Eurobarometer. It's like a kind of famous survey like the EU is doing, and like 2% of Europeans were aware of mobile banking revolution in Kenya back then, so but I think maybe now it's even less, because it's like kind of faded into memory. So I guess like they're totally unaware that you are paying with mobiles like I don't know, 15 years ago or 16 years ago, like, and we are still like not not so many people are paying with mobile phones in Europe as you were paying in 2007 or something like. So that's just like one example.
And actually there's another I can see also. I think, I don't know if in South Africa or Nigeria, they also started implementing Bitcoin, transaction using this more what can I call this phone which are not smart,
like dumb phones.
Yes. So, and
not a smartphone, but a dumb phone. Actually they were called, I think, feature phones before, or even before feature phones you have like some
so we can call maybe them feature phones. So and you can send Bitcoin or means sats through a message, so just the same as M-Pesa, how it works. So, and
okay.
So it's a great, I saw it, and it is a great it's a great innovation actually. And actually if it is embraced, it will it will be a great innovation for African, because still some of the people in the rural Africa or rural Kenya, they're still using the feature phones. But if we compare it to 2007 when M-Pesa was innovated, there are so many feature phones. Right now, the smartphone percentage has risen. I think in Kenya, maybe 80% of Kenyan populations have smartphones, and maybe let's say less than 20% have feature phones. So so, but it's a great innovation.
kind of reversed, like, but back in 2014, I think it was even reverse in Europe. It was like 20% had smartphones and 80% didn't. It was like almost 10 years ago. Okay. But now it's like reversed, but what is interesting about Africa is like in Nigeria, I think, and also in Kenya, you have like Orange or these other kind of operators like Safaricom, of course, like the Safaricom of M-Pesa fame, but you have these mobile phone providers, these telecom companies. And mobile carriers who offer mobile phones that are like smartphones that are like sub $50, so you can like $30 smartphone or something, Yeah, I was researching for another article, or even maybe even for this mobile telescope article, and I wanted to find this Google phone that I remember in Kenya, and it was like 70 or 80 dollars or euros, but it was like back maybe in 2014 or something. I remember like this kind of like Google phones, but I forgot their brand or their name, but I think they were even like called the Google phones, but they were like not like these really cheap smartphones being, I mean, not really cheap, but back then like $80 like was for a smartphone was quite cheap. And they were sold in Kenya. I think like some people had them there, and also we had these phones, but sadly they got stolen, some of them, But we had these phones for teachers, and they were like a Samsung Galaxy Beam, I think Beam 1 and then Beam 2. I'm not sure which one of them was it, but it was like Beam, which was really cool. I think we should get if we created like our own phones, imagine like one in the near future or something, we would like fundraise or crowdfund like our own like Solana phone, but not for 1,000 euros, but sub 100 euros or something, like let's say Solana phone for Africa and for Eastern Europe or something like that. And imagine they could be like these Samsung Galaxy Beam phones, which actually had a projector.
Actually had a projector, I remember.
There are these like cat phones. It's like CAT, like it's like a Caterpillar, the company that is like producing these bulldozers, like the African. Sorry, no, the US company, but the American company producing these big machines like bulldozers, these construction, I don't know, machines. And they have also these cat phones. It's like they're like durable, if they're difficult to break, and some of them and some of them have like temperature, like you point it into, like, for example, if you are like in construction, you are like working, let's say, on a construction site. It helps you to find out like which spots are let's say where the heating, if you are like measuring something, like where there is some kind of heat escaping from the room. Let's say if you want to fix some kind of heating system or something, and you can point it to a wall, and it gives you the temperature of a wall, but imagine like you have this kind of smartphone, but also like with the projector and with these kind of features, maybe some kind of like features to measure your some kind of like, like now you have these fitness bands or something, but there were these kind of other projects. I think it was called ARA, if I'm correct, like was like a Google ARA or something. Was like for a Google phone, but the project was then didn't continue. It was like ended. So and it's difficult. This is difficult, but if you get like, at least the Beam was cool, the Beam, because imagine that like it was like a yellow phone, and it was like it was pretty special because nobody else had this kind of type of phone, and you could like watch football or something, like use it as a projector.
It's true. I remember there's a time when I passed through a street, and I turned it on, and the kids followed me, from the behind, like they're watching movie while we are walking, you know. So it was it was a great fun. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, but yeah, it's a great fun. But unfortunately, it was stolen.
No, but we had like, I don't know, I think we bought like 3 or 4 or something. I don't know, because we gave it to these teachers who were running those clubs, you know.
Yeah.
Who were running those like SOTA ICT clubs, and it was like before it was like the ICT for VOI, and you know, like the it was like differently named, but then ICT clubs, sorry, SOTA ICT clubs. Yeah, and those teachers, like the idea behind it was like, okay, like they could use those projectors, let's say if there is if they don't have another projector, you know, they could basically use the phone just to, you know, to teach the whole class, you know, like, and use it on a go. So let's say if a teacher goes to another school to give some lecture or mentor other teachers, and if there is no projector in that room, or let's say there is some especially for some power issues, you know, like if there is some power outage, and they could use the phone, you know, with the projector. Was really cool. Yeah, so we should have something like that. We should research it and like maybe check check if we could get something like our own custom phone or something. It could be something like this cat phone, like Caterpillar, but like with the mixed with these
features like projector.
Yeah, Samsung Galaxy Beam, and also maybe some with some like biological something like that would be like the ideal phone, like if you have some trackers like bio trackers, fitness trackers as well, like for remote diagnostics. Actually, there is this Slovak startup that is also like doing but they have like their own device connecting to Android phones, doing some like a remote telemedicine diagnostics. But anyhow, sorry, we got carried away from the mobile telescope and searching for a dark talent worldwide. But it's yeah, but these mobile phones like Solana Saga, but they're like for this like premium market, you know, like $1,000 or something. But if we get like 100 sub 100 or sub 50, okay, let's say sub $100 plus having all these features like the projector,
it would be good.
Great.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting perspective. I agree that mobile technology has allowed for greater accessibility and the ability to connect with others from all over the world also. But Balaji also divides countries into ascending and decline. Maybe can you explain this concept further?
Yeah, it's like he talks about the ascending world, like Kenya, and the declining world, like San Francisco in the US, you know. And it's basically similar to Taleb. He considers or thinks about equality in dynamic terms, inequality. So it's not about like who is up and who is down, but who, what is the vector, what is the direction they're heading, you know. So you can be like, let's say, temporarily broke, you know, but you're not poor, meaning like yeah, you're just like trying to progress, to work, to level up, to work on your skills, you know, like we discussed, like that kid that kid from India, like getting this Microsoft certificate in AI something, I don't know, at the age 6, you know. Yeah, I mean, they might, I don't know, they probably are not from a rich background. I don't know, maybe they are, but probably not, like compared to the Western standards, let's say. But they're rising, you know, they're like definitely part of the ascending world and the ascending class. And let's say the opposite could be also true for, let's say, people who are like from rich backgrounds, but let's say they're working in corporate journalism, and they're because of tech innovations, let's say in social media and Google News and stuff like that. They got into severe competition, and they see like their living standards declining. Let's say things are getting expensive in the big cities they live. They see more crime and more kind of homelessness and less reliable power, less reliable traffic, and they see like these power outages and wildfires. And they also see like they're I don't know, they need to produce more and more articles per day and for less and less pay, and the content they are producing becomes more and more clickbait. So it's like they might be from rich backgrounds, but they're like living standards and also their cultural standing in the internet era, in the network age, is like declining. So they're like part of the descending world and the descending class. So that's the difference. And maybe just like to also like to mention Balaji discussing Ramanujan and Hardy, the British mathematician Hardy, who discovered Ramanujan. I'm just talking about it at the beginning of my article, but it's like the example that the Balaji mentions of like the dark talent 100 years ago. Like he was very poor, like growing up in India, and he was like a genius mathematician, like writing all these like letters to mathematicians around the world. Most of them ignored Ramanujan, but Hardy, the British mathematician, he discovered him, or he replied him, and he invited him to the UK, where he helped him to receive like a formal education there in mathematics. And then Ramanujan like went on a rampage through mathematics, and he produced many novel kind of novel results, novel mathematical I don't know how to say it. It's just like repeating what Balaji said, but like some proofs, novel proofs, I guess. And he even was behind, like he focused on prime numbers. And so like prime numbers are like behind cryptography, and so it's also like this story is like maybe they were not so useful in his age, but like once the cryptography and the computers were invented, and so like so he was like kind of like the predecessor of crypto in a way, in a like very distant way, but not so distant, but in a way. So, and he's like the also predecessor of this like example of this like dark talent. You can have like someone rural, let's say in rural Kenya, rural India, like with low internet, but thanks to internet getting like with slow internet and small budget, or like being broke or something, but like with all these technologies, internet getting faster, mobile phones getting cheaper. You can get let's say people doing this like 100-day of code challenge on Replit, and Replit also actually got inspired by Balaji and this 1729. We were part of this 1729 group, like doing some tasks. But I didn't do the Replit ones. I'm still to learn actually to programming. I'm just like, it's a 10-year journey that barely started. But we did some other tasks. Let's say also, so the Replit founder Amjad, he got inspired by these 1729 tasks as to also start like bounties on Replit. And you could actually, anyone who is listening to this, like we discussed before, the guy who did the Replit 100 days of code challenge and ended up actually on being discussed on Rogan podcast because he did this chat GPT times, taking the tweets from Elon and turning them into articles, and like using the kind of a similar branding than the New York Times. So it's like, and he was like on the day 80 something on his learn to code, like the coding challenge from Replit.
But it's an incredible story by that guy. I mean, that's really, really incredible. Yes, but it's exciting to see how also these countries are making progress in their respective fields. Well, Balaji also mentions that social media business models are built around clicks and advertising, which he calls entropic media. Can you maybe touch on this also?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite personal for me. I mean, not personal, but you know, like I'm actually easily distracted, and yeah, I spend so many times, you know, like not just during a lunch break, but it's you kind of develop a habit, you know, it's like sugar or something. So you come, and the first thing you do at work, you know, you get you make yourself a coffee, and then you read, let's say, something on Facebook, and then you end up discussing with someone, or and you just waste time, you know, or you go on Twitter and you waste time, but like you procrastinate, as people say, I don't know, because I don't know, it's just too many tasks and you don't know which one to start. But actually it's like building a muscle, you know. And so the entropic media is like basically a media that provide clickbait, and so it's like 20 random links pointing to 20 different directions. And even if you open like let's say the traditional legacy media that Balaji calls downstream media today, they are also like actually they're optimized for social media, so they are not different from, let's say, the social media content. They are totally optimized so that you get all these like sugary content, you know, like all these kind of trigger words that basically just hijack your attention. They do this like a limbic hijack, you know. And if you develop this habit of like just opening Facebook or Twitter, or like opening the downstream media like page just directly, it's no difference. They all produce this clickbait, this sugary kind of content that hits your attention, and then you're like hooked, you know, and you're like, oh, I don't know, for 20 minutes just reading random links and or arguing with random people. But the opposite of this kind of entropic media is the news you can use, as Balaji calls it, is something like brilliant.org. It's like his example, or Replit, as we discussed now, could be another example. And it's basically something, you know, it's like the entropic media are like heat, you know, it's like particles going into all directions, like 20 different random links going into 20 directions. And the opposite of heat is work, says Balaji, and it's like particles going into one particular direction, you know. It's like so imagine, okay, now you opened something like a crypto Twitter for tasking, or a crypto Discord for where you have your community, or let's say people interested in I don't know, in topics like we discussed 1729 or the network state, or topics around like tech progressivism and longevity, like the topics that Balaji discusses often. And if you have some like crypto tasks, there are tasks where you can, like, I don't know, some coding challenges, some writing challenges, and you something like on Replit, you know, like what Replit got inspired by Balaji, like the 1729 kind of story, where Balaji really just tested it, because he actually sold earn.com to Coinbase before, so he had these like also tasking business before. And actually it's quite interesting that Balaji talks how this is just the very, very, very beginning of this like crypto economy, tasking economy, and what we discussed before, like the pseudonymous economy, you know, where actually it's very, very difficult currently to get paid on internet, you know. You can pay, like you can buy anything, like I don't know, buying a new microphone or something, you know, using, I don't know, a debit card, credit card, but to get paid on the internet is still very difficult, and actually crypto solves that. And also, but what you need is also some kind of crypto credentials, so like something like your community resume, your portable CV, where you can prove that you are like reliable worker, and you have some skills, not just worker, entrepreneur, and you can actually be pseudonymous, like even on the Replit, on that podcast with Amjad and Balaji and the super team from India, they discuss like Replit many people are pseudonymous there, they're just like if you, I think under $10,000 you could still like, they could still like be pseudonymous, or there's these services like where basically they're doing the KYC for you, but you can be still pseudonymous, it's like there is like this kind of middle ground, like, so let's say you're like the pseudonymous to the company, but the KYC provider knows like who you are, and so it can kind of like guarantee to the bank or something that you are like okay, like with from this regulatory standpoint. So that's just like talking about the pseudonymous economy part and KYC. But the issue there, it was like with the internet, it was just difficult to get pay-ins. So like Balaji talks about like payouts are like kind of solved in, and he actually even explains like how the PayPal became, I don't know, like a big huge company, and then there was Stripe that actually improved on payouts, and just like that improvement alone plus other features, but like their flagship project managed to get like 100 billion to create a value of $100 billion, like this Stripe became like $100 billion company or something, thanks to this improvement on payouts. And basically Balaji says that pay-ins, like on the internet, like people getting paid actually on internet is is not solved problem yet, it's like it's once this is solved, also together with the other pieces of this pseudonymous economy and crypto credentials, it's like $1 trillion niche. The guys on super team, like on the podcast discussing with Balaji and Amjad from Replit, they said it's like the earning on internet is like $1 trillion niche. So it's not like a vertical, it's not like a sector, but it's like so many sectors and verticals. It's like advertising, says Balaji. So it's like it's like a whole new opportunity, like for it's like something like this business offshore processing, this onshoring or business BOP. So I forgot like the name now. It's like business outsourcing or something. And you have many of these like intermediary companies. And basically, they could get this intermediated maybe once this issue of pay-ins, or maybe using crypto plus crypto credentials on the internet. So it's like people can, like, let's say, directly compete for some tasks or like doing some competitions and some tasks, like let's say on services like Replit. So like the global talent is like the global meritocracy of talent. And actually, what is interesting, just tying it back to the mobile telescope, is like on Replit, it's like 50,000 Indians a week are using mobile phones to code on Replit. So it's like they're using mobile phones to do the coding, which is...
I had that on the podcast, and it was really interesting.
So it's really like anyone with a smartphone, which is actually, as you said, it's still not everyone has a smartphone. Many people have feature phones, and of course, smartphones are still like super expensive, even like for, or could be expensive like for people in Eastern Europe who don't live in some big cities, but definitely also for Africans. But as we discussed, there are some like sub $50 smartphones, and basically, people can find work and not just find, but actually do work on smartphones, which is maybe not optimal, but it's possible.
That's a valid point. I think on the issue of I mean, the entropic media, I think we can all relate to the feeling of scrolling through social media for hours and not feeling like we have accomplished anything meaningful. But also you mentioned about pseudonymous economy. That sounds like, sounds like a great development in the world of also social media. Maybe as we wrap up this conversation, you also mentioned about brilliant.org. Balaji mentions about it as an example of the news you can use. Can you maybe briefly tell us more about brilliant.org and why you think it's important for the emerging pseudonymous economy?
Yeah, okay. So it's just like an example of like one site that kind of has some kind of like nice user interface and user experience, like kind of advancing your learning. But it's also Replit is like maybe could be even maybe better example in this case. And I mean, just to be honest, I don't have a personal. I downloaded the app, but I don't have the personal experience yet, like with much of it. But it's like when you want to learn computer science or math or something, it kind of it's like a smart app to help you learn. It's like within bite-size kind of pieces, you know, like if you are waiting in the line to get I don't know, to get in the shop, you know, to pay your for your groceries or something like that, you can like do some problems, you know, you can do some exercises using brilliant.org. So it's an app, and on the phone it might be actually for free or partially for free on Android, like for some courses. And I tested also the web app, and I think there you need to pay sooner or something like that. So I didn't pay yet, you know, because I was like, will I use it or something? But yeah, please download it, our listeners. Download brilliant.org. Just check it out, Google it, and then download the app and test it and let us know what do you think. And also Replit. Probably Replit is also an app if it's on mobile phones, right? Android. So
yeah.
But with Replit, you can learn to code and you can then earn these like bounties. And we discussed like 50,000 Indians are coding on Replit a week on their mobile phones. And there are some 6-year-old influencers or something like doing doing some AI coding or something, like also, but also being on Replit. And and these bounties are an example of this like a pseudonymous economy where the bounties on Replit, or like more generally, or what Balaji did with 1729, these crypto tasks and earn.com, and what he will do probably again soon with other projects. So
I think I'll recommend highly Replit. And just to mention, this is not a promo about this app, but it's they're good platform, Replit. Actually, I was I'm thinking also to hop into the challenge, the 100 days code with Replit. And of course, the super team also launched their challenge also, whereby you can build on Solana, which is a good challenge. So people should check out also those
Super Team's Substack, superteam.substack.com, if I'm correct. And they have this like Solana challenge. And we are mentioning Replit not because we are getting paid by them or something, but just because we listened to this podcast recently that we highly recommend, like by Super Team, featuring Balaji and Amjad from Replit. And also we talk about the Replit because we want to get into this 100-day challenge, you know, after like our daily Balajism challenge, which is now approaching 40 podcast episodes, and I did 40 articles. So we want to have a little break with that and discuss other things as well, but also get into our Replit challenge.
Replit challenge is true. I mean, that's so interesting, Jakub. It's fascinating to see how technology is changing the way we interact, with the world and each other. Thank you for joining me today on Mtambo's Desk podcast.
Thank you, Duke. It was great to talk to you.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed listening to Mtambo's Desk podcast, don't forget to subscribe, give this episode a thumbs up, and be sure to come back next week for another episode. Until then, this is Duke Mtambo, and don't forget to do good always.